Chomp.
Hi everybody and welcome back to You Are Supreme Toys. We ran into an unexpected wave of figures the other day at Walmart, the next wave of reissued vintage TMNT action figures. Now all three of these guys are pretty great. We got WingNut and Screwloose, Baxter Stockman, and the punk frog, Genghis Frog. It's surprisingly a very small wave of only 3 figures, but they were case packed with other figures from previous waves to help flesh out empty pegs. Now, as per usual, the card backs on these guys look fantastic. They're so spot on with the vintage packaging. As mentioned in my previous videos, the quickest way to determine if you're looking at a vintage mint on card figure or not is simply this warning tag, this insert inside the bubble, and the J hook. Most of the vintage TMNT figures had the I hook, but other than those few differences, the card art is exactly the same as the vintage. So let's bring Screwloose in here and take a look at his card art. I like his card art. In fact, it kind of looks like the artist actually had the figure on hand when he drew this, because it looks spot on as if he had posed the figure in certain positions and then just drew it. Check out the back of his card. There's one thing, and I dug through the pegs, but the fact of the matter is, even though he's pictured, Rat King is not in this wave. I went online to verify that. Specifically, the only new figures in this wave was Baxter Stockman, WingNut and Screwloose, and Genghis Frog. Now, I should have saw these guys being the next wave, because they did have an online exclusive box set of 6 figures, and these 3 guys were in that box set, and they were shoved in with a handful of the other figures that have already been released, like Shredder and Krang. I like how with each new wave of figures, the card back reflects the contents of the wave, and the number of figures shown increases, just like they did on the vintage card backs. There was one point on the vintage card backs where they totally had to do away with the cross-sell and just do like a pizza pie with little circles of all the images of the characters that had been released, because they had made and reissued so many figures at that point. So let's take a look at WingNut's little portrait here. Portrait of WingNut and Screwloose, dingbat buddies who bite the baddies. Vital batistics, accessories, bat gun, plasma-propelled bat wings, blood-bursting bat bomb, and utility bat belt. Birthplace, Belfry, Transylvania. Favorite sound, blood-curdling. WingNut, the klutzy Cape vampire bat, quietly hung out on his home planet, Huanu. That is, until Krang destroyed it. Saved and sucked into a vortex before his planet exploded, WingNut ended up on Earth along with Screwloose, a level-headed Huanu mosquito. Furious and frantic that Krang obliterated his planet, the crazed WingNut is out to get even with Krang, or anyone else associated with the burbling brain. That makes him a perfect ally with the turtle teens. Despite WingNut's bloodshot eyes, defective radar, stunted wings, and oversensitive ears, he's determined to be a sewer superhero. Even with constant training from our green teens, WingNut's more likely to bump into a building than bust a baddie. Armed with mechanical turbo wings invented by Donatello, WingNut flutters and putters to put a bite on the Foot Clan. This guy looks great in the package. Again, this goes back to all the problems I've had so far with all these reissues, is the sheer difficulty it is of just opening these guys. It wasn't a problem when I was a kid. I wanted the toy, but as a collector and as a nostalgia piece, these things are amazing to look at. They look so wonderful in the package. It breaks my heart every time I open one. But at $10 a piece, they are so affordable. If you want multiples, just buy them. We spend $20 or more on Marvel Legends or G.I. Joe Classified or Fortnite or whatever you collect. You're going to spend $20 or more, maybe $30 on an action figure. $10 you can get 3 of the same thing if you want, and just get what you like, because these guys are fantastic. So let's go ahead and pop WingNut out and see how he turns out. here we got WingNut. Now, there are some major differences that I can see right away. First off, his legs, at least this one, is very loose. It scared me for a second. I thought it might have been broken when I took it out. He's got very soft limbs, so they're somewhat pliable. His neck and peg is also very pliable, and it can come off. His head actually comes off pretty easy. That's insane. He's got a very glossy paint. He looks great. Date stamped 2022. I think these were reissued a little bit earlier in another box set. He's got his wings here, screw loose, his bat bomb and his gun, wings, and they simple, just plug in like that. Pretty good. He has these pegs on his wings right here that he can attach his weapons to, such as his gun and his bat bomb if you so desire. And then of course, screw loose, can ride on his back, which is something we actually did quite a lot. We'd have him up on his back, like flying on his ears or whatever. Or you can put him on the back of his wings. We have a little mosquito buddy. Now this guy's very gummy. He's just kind of squishy. So he only has 5 points of articulation. His arms swivel, his hips and his neck, well, 7 if you count his wings. And I don't know how I feel about these wings. They are sort of gummy too, really gummy. So it's kind of difficult to peg them into place, and then it's even harder to get them to want to stay pressed in and articulate them. So let's go ahead and bring in vintage WingNut here. This is my brother's original WingNut and screw loose. I have tried to take as good a care of it as possible. And just glancing at them, you'd have a kind of a difficult time telling these guys apart if it wasn't for certain issues. For instance, let's take a look at WingNut here. Vintage WingNut is kind of he's stiff figurine. He doesn't have a lot of pliability, but he has a little. Whereas the new one is very soft and very bendy. He's just not as firm as the vintage one. As far as colors are concerned, the vintage one is a darker, more yellowy mustard plastic. And the new one is kind of I'd say paler yellow. But the sculpt is pretty much one for one. It's amazing to me that they've got this sculpt so well down that it's really close. It really is very close. The weapons have the same issue. The colors are very close. Very close. I like the little bat head on that gun. That was always fun. But the simple fact of the matter is the new weapons are so soft and squishy that it's absolutely ridiculous. Again, this goes back to I wish the first issue reissue Turtles and a couple of the other figures had these softer weapons. It seems like they incorporate these soft weapons more often with figures that don't really need them, because the weapons for WingNut aren't gonna get broken. They're pretty sturdy, solid plastic. But the colors are very, very close. Again, you're immediately going to know because it's going to be really soft and pliable. The same with the grenade. The handle on the grenade is a lot softer, and the vintage one's just not going to give at all. And it goes back to the wings too. The wings on the vintage WingNut are very firm. They plug into place very firmly, and they swivel. This wing's kind of gotten loose over the years. So you're going to tell immediately because these just pop right off and they're so gummy and malleable. It's absolutely ridiculous. I would say that's kind of a negative for the wings. I felt like the firm, hard wings actually were good on the vintage one. The belt on both are a soft plastic and the colors are very, very similar. Let's see if we can remove these belts. Take a closer look. Alright, vintage belt on the right. Reissue belt on the left. So if we get these in close, you're not gonna really know the difference just at a glance. These are so close in color, and the plastic malleability is pretty much one for one the same. It would be very, very easy to confuse these two accessories for the same accessory. In fact, I would almost get these mixed up if the vintage one wasn't a little dirty. So let's see if we can find anything out of the ordinary. And I'm just not seeing anything. Everything from the bat head to the peg on the back are pretty close. It's almost impossible to tell. They even have the little M that's printed on the inside of the belt right there on the end on both pieces. One of them is a little shallow, and that's the vintage one. So I don't know if they actually use the same molds. Like in most cases, these figures, they make new sculpts and new molds completely, but on rare occasions, these companies actually still have managed to hold on to the vintage molds. And this might be a case where the vintage mold was actually still used, because it is impossibly similar. Even the scale is similar. I can't see very much off with this. I mean, that's going to be a difficult tell right there. But I would say the vintage one might be a slight hue darker. Yeah, the vintage belt is definitely just a tad bit darker yellow. Of course, the vintage one is going to be date stamped 1990, Mirage Studios. And the new one is going to be Viacom 2022. The sculpt is pretty darn, again, close. Even down to the peg holes on the back, the little ridges inside are the exact same. The paint apps are very accurate, even down to the little Tampo W on his stomach. They even painted his stomach. There were a few figures in the last wave that had a lot of missing paint apps, and this is just not the case with WingNut. Even the little blush on his nose is present. The eyes are painted, the tongue is painted, everything's painted exactly as the vintage figure was painted. The colors for the paint are a lot darker on the vintage figure. For instance, the brown is a lot darker. But his feet, his legs, and arms are much softer plastic. So is his head, compared to the vintage counterpart, which is a lot firmer. So I'm pulling his arms out, trying to bend them, and they're not giving very much at all. Whereas if I do the same thing with this one, they're very gummy. So that's the quickest way to tell, other than the date. But one for one, just about, like, they're pretty close. If you want a WingNut and screw loose, you're not going to know the difference between this and the vintage one. So let's see how he holds his accessories. The very gummy gun might be an issue. Let's see. Yeah, it's not too bad. He can hold it. Of course, he's only got the single finger grip right there, and then he can hold his bomb grenade in the other hand. So he holds his weapons well. The wings peg into place good. Belt goes on good. Yeah, this guy is simply fantastic. WingNut and screw loose, they're great. This guy is pretty good. I'm very happy with him. Next up, we got Genghis Frog. Again, this is another figure that my brother had. I remember very vividly him getting this guy on Christmas when we were very small, and he looks pretty good. Again, the package art is phenomenal. He's on his little surfboard here, or what would you call that? It's not a surfboard, a boogie board, I think. Got his little frog tongue gun, catching a fly very aggressively. And he's about to throw his little grenades.
Portrait of Genghis Frog, the tubular surfing dude, vital frogtistics, weapons, tongue gun, radical razor sharp boogie board, surfing shades, beach bandolier with cola can grenades, birthplace, surf swamp of Okefenokee, Florida. Favorite song, Sewer Surfing USA. Favorite movie, Swamp Thing. Genghis Frog, once a humble, naive tadpole, was accidentally mutated, then intentionally tricked by the evil Shredder to join his cohorts in horror. Once exposed to the sinister, wicked ways of Shredder, Genghis soon realized that the turtles were his true friends. Now, this radical, amphibious leader of the frogs is showing everyone his true colors. He's a sewer surfing, full, and courageous dude who doesn't mind riding the waves to splash the foot. Undaunted by the fear of croaking, Genghis Frog armed himself with his tongue gun to lick the evil Shredder. Riding his radical razor-sharp boogie board, this frog's ready to cut the Foot Clan to ribbons.
Now, I used to really like this guy as a kid. This is one of those figures where I was kind of jealous it was my brother's. Because he's just really this just so cool surfing frog guy. I remember the episodes where the punk frogs were prevalent in the cartoon. And it was always interesting to me that other than this Genghis Frog here, two of the others were never made, and Napoleon looked nothing like his animated counterpart. And I would like to see, if Playmates is listening, which they're not, I would like to see Playmates Toys go back, get all the concept art that they have hidden away for all the unproduced turtle characters and figures, and actually make them. Make some modern day, new, vintage style turtle figures. I want to see the other two punk frogs. I'm sure other people have been dying to see them for 30 years now. There are other numerous characters I'm sure that did not get released and only made it through concept art. Super 7 has done that with the Motu line. They released figures that never had actual figures released. This guy looks amazing. In the package. Let's go ahead and get him out. Alright, here we got Genghis Frog out of the package. And he is being difficult. He has his neck swivel, his shoulders, his wrists swivel, and then of course his hips are on a ball joint. He comes with a belt, which is attached to him in the package. He comes with his tongue gun, which is warped from the package, and it is a softer plastic. That's why, but it's easy to pull in and out. It's not so easy to push, but you can definitely pull it. You might want to leave it in there, let it de-stress. He has his 4 grenades attached to these little sprues right here that you have to cut off. His awesome sunglasses, which I always loved these as a kid. And his boogie board shield, which is a very fun accessory. It's a little warped though from the package. He's a very simple guy. There's not a lot of paint apps on him, but the ones that are on him, count. This leg is a little bit stiff. It doesn't want to spin around very well. I don't want to break him. He's probably one of the more difficult figures to get standing because his feet are kind of wonky. And I feel like that's the case even for the vintage one. His belt is pegged on. And that pops off. It is adjustable. So if you want it a little bit looser, it has 6 different portholes. And be careful because this is very kind of flimsy. This is a soft belt, but it's not as soft as, say, WingNut's belt was. And he's got his soda can grenades. I'd have liked to have seen these little grenades have little soda decals on them. So they got different types of soda. But they fit right in the bandolier here. Holds his accessories pretty good. Glasses fit right over his eyes. Oop. The glasses are a little bit warped out of the package, so it's a little difficult for them to stay on his face. That's going to be a challenge. You might need to heat these up and mold them in whatever fashion you need to get him to stay. He wants to fall over. Golly, he wants to fall over. There you go, buddy. There you go. Decked out. I also still have my brother's vintage Genghis. And I gotta say, these guys are very difficult just at a glance to tell apart. But we can do it. I have his belt somewhere with his grenades. I just don't know where it's at. First off, his accessories. The vintage accessories are a lot firmer. There is not very much give to these. Whereas the new ones are very malleable pieces of plastic. The new accessories are also a lighter shade of blue. The vintage tongue gun is definitely better in some ways. You can see the darker plastic on the vintage, and this is a harder, firmer plastic. There is no give to this tongue, whereas you saw earlier the new one is soft and it was warped in the package, but it still slides in and out. Not as effectively as this one does. You can flick this one and it's pretty good. Darker plastic. The sculpt's pretty close. Not a lot of differences. I'd say the new one is slightly smaller than the vintage one. Just a hair smaller. And of course, the boogie board is a softer plastic as well. And you can see the new one's warped in the package. I like the firmer plastic for his accessories, but I don't mind the softer plastic. I know some people will, but I don't think it's that big a deal. There's no reason you should be able to mix these vintage parts up with the reissued parts. Now let's take a look at Genghis and see the differences. The vintage Genghis, the green plastic for his head, arms, and legs are a much lighter green. The new one is darker. I like the dark color probably better. The eyes on the vintage one are scratched up a little bit, but they are a darker blue eye, where these are light blue. The teeth is a big difference in the teeth. The vintage Genghis has green lining in his teeth, whereas the new one does not, which is pretty cool. The blue on the jacket is definitely a lighter blue than the vintage one, and the yellow is definitely darker on the vintage one. I always like the little angry cloud on the back. The wristband and the watch are painted on both, and everything looks pretty good. I gotta say, it's definitely, you can definitely tell the difference without looking at the date stamp. The new one will of course have this little stamp on the bottom of the foot, and it will be 2022 Viacom, whereas the vintage one is 1989. The limbs on Genghis are actually firm. He's not soft like WingNut. I don't know why they're so different between figures as far as the quality of plastic is concerned, but this guy looks great. This reissue is fantastic. I would have preferred the firmer accessories with him, but he's okay. He looks good. And these glasses are a little bit wonky and don't want to stay on his face. But everything else is pretty fantastic. I think this is a great reissue. This is a great figure. It was a great figure in 1989. It's a great figure today. And he's pretty spot on. Pretty spot on, I got to admit. Genghis Frog, everybody. Lastly, and certainly not least, we've got Baxter Stockman here and his fly-faced glory. I don't know what to say about this guy. Even today, he looks absolutely ridiculous. I always imagined him making cakes for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's the bow tie. He just seems like a soda jerk, if you know what that is. I love the art on this packaging. He's got him flying in to attack Raphael, and he's got his little turtle swatter here. And this is such a vicious image. He is straight up strangling Raphael from behind. He's such an angry fly guy. So let's take a look at the back. Again, the same backer card as everybody else. He's got his little portrait here.
Portrait of Baxter Stockman, the bungling, bug-eyed, wickedly winged scientist. vital flyistics, accessories, turtle swatter, detachable fly wings and arms. Dimension where created, X. Favorite sport, soup swimming. Favorite phrase, help me. Baxter Stockman, a man with the mind of a scientist and the body of a common housefly, buzzes around town annoying the turtles and other decent reptiles. Created accidentally in Dimension X by a malfunctioning disintegrator unit, Baxter flurried himself into an avenging frenzy, ready to fly up anyone's nose. Finally convinced by Shredder that the turtles were solely responsible for his rebirth as an insect, Baxter now vents his hostilities toward our half-shelled heroes. Armed and winged with the turtle swatter, Baxter swats the shell out of the turtles. His scientific experiments may break a few beakers, but Shredder can always use a fly with evil ingenuity.
Well, this guy is just fun wrapped up in a package. That's all I can say. When is the last time you've gotten a Flyman action figure where he's just gross, fly, scientist, dude? This is the only one, the only guy. Maybe reinterpreted in different ways, but it's Baxter Stockman. Maybe you get something from the Fly movie every 20 years, but nope, Baxter Stockman. I didn't get this guy new as a kid, but I did find him at a flea market. So, let's pop him out of the package. Alright, we've got the evil Baxter Stockman here. He has a swivel neck, his swivel arms, his swivel wrists, and of course his legs are on a ball joint. A bit stiff at first, but that's good. I like that. What a buzzy body. What a buzzy guy. He's got his wings. His wings have articulated arms, and the wings actually are articulated as well. And these just socket right into his back, as so. And now he looks freaking crazy with his wing arms. And then he has his turtle swatter here. And the turtle swatter is 2 pieces. The swatter comes out of the little handle thing. Yeah, I was never really certain how he held it other than this. And it's got a little turtle squatted on the front. I like that. I mean, if you look at the card art, he's got it wrapped around his wrist and he's holding the swatter, so... Okay, I guess that's about as close as you're going to get. Now, I'm going to go ahead and bring in the vintage Baxter Stockman I have. This guy has seen better days. This was not my Baxter Stockman. Whatever kid had got this, colored his eyes in, colored his teeth in. I did get him a very long time ago, though. He's just in really bad shape. In fact, I got him, I was still a kid when I got this guy. But I got his wings separate. So I found him without any accessories. And I found his wings at a separate event, and one of the wings broke off, and my dad actually repaired it with a heat gun and a small nail. So the nail acts as the peg that he just melted into the back of the shoulder, which is absolutely ludicrous, but my dad did that kind of stuff with a lot of our action figures when they broke. He'd be like, oh, I'd be like, it broke, and he'd be like, I'll fix it, and he'd just stick a screw through it or something. But, you know, I had a Baxter Stockman to play with, so we can look and see some differences. For instance, if you look at the jacket, the syringe on his jacket, as well as some of the tears in the shoulder of the arm, are painted on the vintage one. There is some blue painted over the purple inside of the body, whereas it's not painted on the reissue. And then there's some more gray spots on the shirt on the left that are painted. The buttons are painted on the vintage. The buttons are not painted on the reissue. Let's take a look at the fly arms, and you will be able to tell some major differences in these guys. First off, there are a lot more paint apps on the vintage arms. You can see the sinew is painted here, veins are painted here, and there's veins painted on the back of the arms and the shoulders. And there's a lot of paint apps on these wings. There's paint on the inside and the outside of the wings, whereas the reissued has some minor paint lines and a little bit of sinew paint, but other than that, the back of the arms are completely bare and the back of the wings are completely bare. So there's a lot of missing paint apps on the reissued Baxter Stockman. Now, as far as the accessory is concerned, I have the vintage Baxter's accessory somewhere, but I do not know where it's at. The colors are different. This is a more pliable plastic, where I know for a fact the vintage one is not. There are multiple variations of the vintage accessory. There are variations where the swatter is brown plastic and the armband is blue plastic. Then there are variants where the swatter is blue plastic and the handle is brown plastic. Then there are variants where both are blue, and I'm pretty sure there's probably variants where both are brown as well. Baxter was one of those figures that was reissued multiple times in the vintage line on multiple card backs. So he had multiple minor variations with accessories and probably paint apps as well. There should be no way for you to confuse accessories between them, especially considering I know for a fact that at least the bottom part of the weapon is a hard plastic. I just don't know where it's at. This guy looks good though. I'm not going to nitpick the missing paint apps because from the front he looks good. I doubt you're going to have your Baxter Stockman on the shelf like that. So yeah, I'm happy with him. I'm just thrilled to finally get a Baxter Stockman that's not all gnarled up like this. The actual hair on the vintage one is darker orange. I don't know what color the vintage eyes are because they're just destroyed. The face, I feel like the face was more of a turquoise on the vintage one, whereas this is a very light blue. The hand paint is definitely a different flesh tone. The purple is definitely lighter on the vintage one. This guy looks fantastic. I'm pretty sure people will nitpick some of the minor missing paint apps, but I'm not. I'm happy with him. He looks great. This has been a great set of figures. I'm glad it was only 3 this time. I feel like 3 figures is perfect for this. It's not overbearing. They're not throwing out 10 figures at a time. Though the last wave was 7 figures, which was a bit excessive. It took a little bit of time to find all those for me. The finding 3 is a lot easier because that means there's multiples of each one in each case pack out, and they're not going to be short packed. So yeah, if you see these guys, you want them, pick them up. Can't beat $10. I've seen them at Walmart only so far. So if you want some stand-ins for your vintage figures, maybe your vintage figures aren't in the best condition, or you just don't have your vintage figures anymore and you're just very nostalgic and you want to recollect, these guys are great. These guys are fantastic. Playmates is killing it right now with their vintage reissued figures. I think they're doing a good job. I want them to keep reissuing the vintage figures. Not counting the storage shell turtles, we are up to 14 unique characters now for the reissued turtle line. I hope Rat King's in the next wave. He was my figure growing up, so I can't wait to get a new Rat King. This has been an unboxing and review of the newest wave of vintage TMNT reissues from Playmate Toys, and I am UR Supreme Toys. Thank you so much for watching.